major changes coming down the track in the publisher ecosystem around how campaigns are executed, how they're being targeted, how you deliver to the right audiences and achieve campaign performance. That makes a lot of sense for both buyers and sellers. And some of the research we've recently done has shown that there's actually a lot of interesting stuff happening in the ecosystem right now. The first observation is that with the kind of deprecation of cookies and kind of identity in general becoming much more challenging in the industry with GDPR and a bunch of legislation coming out, there's been ample discussion about that topic, that it kind of leads into two separate tracks for both buyers and sellers to align around. Either we try to take a route of fixing some of the identity solutions to be much more regulatorily compliant. The track that we take there is that we see a lot of people kind of converging on the concept of first-party data. First-party data is data sets in general that tell me something about my audiences, about users, about identity, but in a way that I can control where the data is originating from, that I can know that it's regulatorily compliant, and I can use it as kind of my secret sauce, my unique capability in the market to perform better than anyone else out there. And the interesting thing is that both buyers as well as sellers have been building up these first-party data sets and are going into the next couple of years thinking that their first-party data set is going to be the single source of truth, and that's what they're going to be using to kind of effectively target campaigns and reach the right audiences. And that disconnect is a kind of very interesting situation in the market today, where our research shows publishers are heavy believers that they're going to be able to deploy this first-party data within these campaigns, that are going to be able to convince sellers to adopt it as well and trust this information. And that's going to be the kind of the new oil in the market that they're going to be able to monetize and increase revenues on. At the same time, buyers are in a pretty much similar position. They are also at risk of losing a lot of targeting control. They've been building their own first-party data sets, and they are very convinced that they're going to be able to convince everyone to take their first-party data and execute against that. So while everybody's shouting first-party data, the kind of interesting observation from our research is that everybody's talking about a totally different subject. And it's really interesting how that's going to kind of pan out. We're going to have a really interesting period of time where we're figuring out to what extent sellers are able to convince buyers that they can deliver scalable solutions, where I, as a buyer, don't need to interface with 100 different publishers, each with their own different taxonomies of first-party data, each with their own different ways of obtaining this information, with their own kind of quality levels of data. How do I trust as a buyer that all of that data is accurate, is going to perform well, and that I'm willing to pay a premium for that? Vice versa, when buyers come in the door and say, like, no, we're going to work off of my data, to what extent are publishers willing to kind of throw their own stuff on the side and just kind of take whatever the buyer has available and work off of that? And they kind of lose the ability to monetize whatever information they have available, right? Because I think there's a little argument that having direct exposure to the user is the best possible way to kind of understand who they are and what their interests are. So that's the first-party data track, and like trying to fix the identity solutions that are out there and like move away from the cookie into the first-party data track. At the same time, we see a complementary story with just moving away from identity in the first place as a way to isolate audiences into using context and kind of the in-the-moment behavior of a user, like what are they reading or consuming right now or watching, that tells me something about what they're in the market for or what their interests are at this very moment in time. If I target context, can I just drop the concept of identity in the first place and go straight to that very moment that the user is experiencing? The main benefit is like you lose this concept of identity, so it becomes much easier to scale and make regulatorily compliant because you don't even need identity and cookies in the first place. One of the challenges is that kind of mapping back to the first-party data story, who is going to define the taxonomy of aboutness? Who is going to determine what an article or a video or a piece of content is about, and then what the taxonomy for that information, that classification system is, and then how to target, how to execute against that taxonomy, and really be able to execute campaigns against contextual relevancy. And again, sellers will argue they have the best view of their content, so they are the best position to determine aboutness. Buyers will say it's not going to be able to scale, and that's kind of where verification vendors like DoubleVerify can enter and be an independent party to build bridges between the two sides, where we can come in with a vetted classification system, a long track record in doing the same technology for brand suitability, just applying it in a different way to solve the contextual challenge. Having a normalized taxonomy that both buyers and sellers can agree on, that is compliant with all the industry standards and GARM and APB framework and so forth. And then build that kind of independent Switzerland that both parties can trust and validate and believe that the data has a level of accuracy needed to perform high quality, high performing campaigns. And then throughout this transition period, we're going to see that both of these tracks are going to be battle tested, right? They're going to be compared, they're going to be combined. There's no reason why you wouldn't be able to just use both at the same time. And we're going to see over the next couple of years kind of what emerges. And my personal belief is we're going to see a hybrid outcome where first-party data is going to be layered with contextual data. And depending on what the outcomes are that you're trying to target and how much first-party data you have available about the particular audiences you're trying to reach, is going to make the determination which one of those two is going to perform best for you. And as these two converge and we create this kind of hybrid world where I combine the two together to reach kind of best class solutions, throughout those next couple of years, we're going to see an increasing need to be able to compare and to be able to validate and to see the KPIs of how campaigns are performing and have a joint mutual understanding between buyers and sellers about what those numbers are. Because one of the main challenges is if we're going through these kind of transition periods and buyers and sellers disagree about the KPIs and don't agree on the methodology of how to measure them and how to quantify them, this whole process will take multiple years longer to resolve than if we can just agree on the baselines there. And this is again where measurement and verification can come in and become, again, the Switzerland of trusted, accredited, validated metrics that both parties can align on, can agree on, and that have been battle tested for over a decade now in the market. Can be used to validate when I'm running A/B tests, when I'm running comparisons, when I'm shifting in the industry like this, how well performance is being impacted and how we're optimizing using all the data available to us. And that's the kind of dual role that we see for DoubleVerify in the market today, is unlocking as much contextual data as we can to improve this targeting story and to help publishers and buyers through the shift that is happening over the next couple of years. And at the same time, providing this kind of non-contested baseline accredited data set that can be referenced by both parties and be trusted as a single source of truth about how campaigns are performing across all the different core KPIs you care about. From the kind of baseline, was this even a valid impression, to did I reach engagement metrics? Did I reach exposure metrics? Did I reach kind of performance and conversion metrics? Each different buyer is going to have a different set of objectives to achieve with their campaigns, but they should be able to fall back on an independent verified number that is non-contested by either side of the business. That's kind of our thinking around this subject, and we'd love to engage more with the community, with publishers and advertisers out there, kind of see how they're thinking about these problems and see how that could impact our product planning and road mapping process. How can we best deliver value to our customers as they are both kind of experiencing this very fluid, flexible moment in the industry right now?